38 years ago. And the Rebbe, as very often the Rebbe will do, he will speak about the significance of a certain date in the calendar. In this case, he will speak about tonight's date on the calendar. Chof Beis Iyar is tonight. What that, I think tonight Chof Beis Iyar, correct? Tonight's Chof Beis Iyar. Today is Chof Av. Yes, so tonight is Chof Beis Iyar. And Chof Beis Iyar, the Rebbe says, is the first Shabbos from when the Yidden had started receiving the Mahn. So let's just learn the first paragraph, then we're going to skip over. Shabbos should be used of B'chav Beis Iyar. This Shabbos that comes out on the 22nd of Iyar, Yeshnai Inya Miyuchat She'ira Boy Bayoim B'Smichslot Seifnei Yisrael Mitzrayim. There is something unique that occurred, and that very day, the 22nd of Iyar, close to when Yidden went out of Mitzrayim. Me'ura HaKosherim close in Shabbos, an event that's connected with the general idea of Shabbos Kidl Kamon, as we will learn later on. Let's skip down the page to Ois Beis. Concerning the date of Shabbos of the 22nd of Iyar, the first year that came out of Mitzrayim, there is an explicit story in the written Torah. You don't have to go to the Gemara, to Medrashim. The Kesher and close in Shabbos connected with the general idea of Shabbos. See, Hashem Hashem gave you the Shabbos. See, it says in the Pasuk, by Yisum Elim, that the Jewish people traveled from Elim by Avoyu called Daspne Yisrael Gomer B'Chamisha Aser Yom L'Chodesh Hashem L'Tzeis Mert Mitzrayim, and the whole congregation of the Bnei Yisrael arrived on the 15th day of the second month, meaning the month of Iyar, since they went out of the land of Mitzrayim. Rashi says, Nisparish Hayoim Shel Chanoyazu. It was explicitly stated the date of this time when the Yidden rested. There was a lot of times, there was a lot of travels throughout the Midbar. They went 42 stops. It doesn't say the date for every single stop that they did in the Midbar. Why over here does the Torah explicitly state, you know when they stopped over here? They stopped on the 15th day of the month of Iyar. That day, the 15th of Iyar, it stopped the food that they took out of Mitzrayim, and they needed to have the Mahn come down. And the Mahn came down on the 16th of Iyar. The 16th of Iyar was a Sunday. Kiddusim Masechtas Shabbos, like it's brought down in the Gemara Masechtas Shabbos. There are those unfortunate that bring down that part of the celebration on Lag BaOmer actually is connected with the Mahn coming down, even though it came down the 16th of Iyar. But that's a different discussion. Bisham, and over there it says in the Masechtas Shabbos, the Rebbe is now going to go to the Gemara after quoting the Rashi. It says by Yisum Elim, that they traveled from Elim. By Avoyu called Bnei Yisrael, all the congregation of Yisrael came. The 15th day of the second month. The Gemara says that day was Shabbos. As it says, as Hashem in the morning, you will see the glory of Hashem. That you will see Hashem's honor in bringing you and giving you the Mahn. You will see Hashem's greatness every single morning when you see the Mahn laid out on the ground. It says Sheishis Yom Til Kitu. It says 6 days you will collect it. In other words, from Sunday through Friday. So it must have been Sunday, or else he couldn't tell him to collect it for 6 days. It says also that day they complained about the Mahn, like it says in the Pasuk, by Yiloinu, that they complained al Moshe, about Moshe, concerning the food, and he promised to have the Mahn come down on the morrow. Therefore, on Sunday, Yardlam Mahn Chila, right away in the beginning, the Mahn came down on Sunday. Like it says, 6 days you will collect it. The seventh day of its coming down, Shabbos lo boy, it will not come down. And the continuation of the story in the Torah portion that speaks about it, that the Mahn came down all 6 days of the week. From the Sunday, the 16th of year, until the 6th, until Friday, the 21st of year. That's today's Hebrew date. On the 21st of year, on Friday, they collected a double portion of bread, 2 oimer per person. By a voy and all the heads of the congregation came and they told Moshe Rabbeinu, what's going on? Why do we have 2 portions of bread today when all the days of the week we only had 1 portion? By Moshe responded to them, Hashem Shabbos and Shabbos Kodesh Hashem Mocher. This is what Hashem spoke, that it's a holy day for Hashem tomorrow, and that's why the Mahn will not come down. Let's skip the brackets. When Shabbos came, Chav Beis Iyar, the 22nd of Iyar, Moshe said, eat it today. Shabbos Hayom LaHashem, Hayom L'Tzitzul Basada. Today is Shabbos for Hashem. You won't find it in the field. See that Hashem gave you the Shabbos. In other words, you could actually see it with your own eyes that the world is different on Shabbos, that the Mahn did not come down. Nimtza comes out, Sheyom Shabbos, Chav Beis Iyar, who Inyan Klali B'Shabbos, comes out that when Shabbos was then on the 22nd of Iyar, that was a general idea in Shabbos. Shabbos HaRishono L'Yeridas HaMahn, it was the first Shabbos of the Mahn coming down. Allah Namar, concerning this first Shabbos, it says, since the Mahn came down, Re'u, you could see Kashem Nasmul Kamas HaShabbos, because you could see the world changing. You could see the difference that the Mahn does not come down. Let's skip the brackets further. Therefore, when the day of Shabbos, 22nd of Iyar, arrived, we have to live with the times. To relive again with the content of the idea of the day of Shabbos, the 22nd of Iyar, the first day going out of Mitzrayim. Let's skip over a little bit. The Rebbe is going to pose a few questions over here in the order of the Psukim. Let's start from the second paragraph. Say the Aksuvim B'Parshas HaMahn, who the order of the Psukim when it relates the story of the Mahn. Aleph, it tells you Haskolos Yeridas HaMahn, how the Mahn began to come down. In the morning, there was a layer of dew around the camp, and the layer of dew arose with the warmth of the day. They saw all along the face of the wilderness this thin covering, like in some type of sheet. It was a thin thing like ice or frost on the earth. By Yiru b'nei Yisrael, and the Jewish people saw, by Yoimru Ish Alecha Achiv Manhu, and each one said to the other, what is this? Ki lo yadu mahu, because they didn't know what it is. By Yomer Moshe Aleim, and Moshe told them, Hu Alechem Hashem Nos Hashem L'chem La'achla, this is the bread that Hashem gave you to eat. That's one thing that it says. Beis, the second thing that the parsha speaks about in Parsha B'Shalach, when it talks about the Mahn, the specific events that happened on Friday and on Shabbos. This is what occurred on Friday, that they had a double portion and they came to Moshe Rabbeinu asking about it. And then this Shabbos came. And then the nation did not collect on the 7th day on Shabbos. Third thing it says afterwards, the house of Yisrael called its name Mahn, and that's like this white coriander seed, and it tasted like this thing fried in dough fried in honey. And Dalet, the fourth thing it talks about, this is the matter that Hashem commanded, fill an oimer measure of it as a safekeeping for your generations, so that they should see the bread that I fed them. I fed you in the midbar by Mitzrayim when I took you out of the land of Mitzrayim, and this remained with them for generations with the Aron and the Kodesh HaKadosh. So the Rebbe says that seemingly the story over here is out of order. First, it should talk about what happened immediately, that after they collected it and saw it, they called it Mahn, and then later it should talk about the idea of Shabbos that occurred later on. Tzarech love when you understand Kriyas Hashem Mahn, calling it Mahn by Yikra Beisrael Shmai Mahn, that the house of Yisrael called it Mahn B'chol Paratav and all the details, Mareyu, Tzurose, V'taimai, how it looked and how it, what its form was and what its flavor was, as he says in the pasuk, "Who Kitzra God love him." Time speaks with Bosh. Seemingly the appropriate place where it should talk these details about the Mahn in the Torah would take it from Iyar Bechukosai by the series Haman. It's immediately when they're relating about the Mahn coming down. Why were these details written after the lengthy story about Friday and Shabbos? Only after Moshe told them, see that Hashem gave you the Shabbos. The nation rested on a day, didn't collect it on the day of Shabbos. Then the Torah says, by Yikru Beis Yisrael Shmai Mahn, that the house of Yisrael called the name Mahn, Vukizragad Blavim, a time it speaks with Vash. It describes what it looked like and described its flavor. Also concerning the command of filling an Omer measure for a safekeeping for your generations. Like Rashi explains, as something that you hide away, for your generations. What generations are we talking about? In the days of Yirmiyahu and Navi. When Yirmiyahu rebuked the Jewish people, why aren't you studying Torah? If we will leave our work and be involved in Torah study, how will we derive, how will we make a living? So Yirmiyahu and Navi took out of the Kodesh HaKadoshim, he took out the jar of Mahn. Amar lahem, he told them, Atem re'u dvar Hashem. Now you can see the words of Hashem. It doesn't say hear the words of Hashem, which is usually the term that the Navi uses, but see. See. This Mahn is how your forefathers made a living when they were in the wilderness. Hashem has many messengers and many ways to supply food for those that fear him. And therefore, you don't have to be worried that if you're going to study Torah, you're not going to have food. So again, Shagam Inyanza Masim Lakoswe, also this idea makes sense to write it, skip the parentheses, take it from a Iyar Bechukosai Samon immediately at the beginning where he tells the story about the Mahn writing down, the Mahn coming down. Not after the Torah says that the Yidden rested on the seventh day. Let's skip over further. So the Rebbe says in Ois Hey that he mentioned earlier as well that Shabbos, we mentioned earlier in the Sicha that Shabbos is the conclusion of the whole idea of the month. And the Rebbe says, actually, let's go to the third paragraph on this page, right before Hey. Since it's the case, it makes sense that this pasuk that speaks about the calling of Mahn is actually not out of order. That when did the Jewish people call it Mahn? It was after they rested on the seventh day. And the Rebbe says, "What time of boy? We need to understand the reason for it. Why did they wait for Shabbos to call it Mahn?" The Rebbe says in Hey, we say the explanation in this, according to what we said earlier in the Fabrengen, Shabbos Nishlam, Klolosa in the Yeridus Hamon. On Shabbos day was completed the entire stage of the idea of the Mon coming down. When the Mon descended on Sunday. They still did not know how and what type of manner will be the continuation of it. What's going to happen the next day? What's going to happen in 3 days, in 5 days? Until an entire week passed. It was 5 days a week that they collected an omer for each head, for every person. And then on the 6th day, in other words, Friday, that they collected a double portion of money. Till Shabbos, where they did not go out collect at all. They ate from the double portion of bread that they came down on a Friday. Then it was clarified and established the general order of when the Mon descended. So once they had a full week, they understood how the process would work. What would happen over here exactly? 5 days would be an omer per head. Friday would be a double portion per head. Shabbos, nothing would come. According to this, is answered all the above mentioned questions. Lost my place. Both concerning the calling the name Mon only after Shabbos passed. Also concerning the command of putting it as a safekeeping for your generations was only after he related about Shabbos. Originally did this on Sunday when the Mon came down, the first day when the Mon came down. They said to a man to his brother, Monhu. Now over there, I translated as Mon as what, but the explanation of the word Mon in Rashi is something else. In this pasuk, it says Hachonas Mozen. When the man told his brother it's Mon, that means it's a prepared food. Because they didn't know what it was, they should call it by its name. So they called it Mon because they had no name to call it. So they said, food came, they couldn't call what type of food it was. Therefore, they waited for the following days. Perhaps over time, some other details will become clarified. Maybe they'll be able to figure out a name for it. After an entire week passed by, and the Mon came down, then all the details of the matter were clarified in a set and organized fashion. Then the house of Yisrael called its name Mon. Why did they call it Mon? They had nothing further what to wait for. In other words, they saw the entire cycle. They saw exactly how it would work. They didn't expect anything to change. Once the week passed by, nothing new was going to happen. So therefore, they had all the information based on which they can make any type of decisions, and they called it Mon. Was called Prat of Mareu and the pasuk adds all the details. Its way it looked, its form, and its in other words, its color, its form, and flavor. Because God love him. The time it's like the pasuk says, because now we know exactly. It's called Prat Advarim, all the details of the matter. So to concerning the command that Moshe said, this is the matter Hashem commanded. Fill up an omer measure of it as a safekeeping for your generations, so that they should see the bread that I fed them in the wilderness when I took you out of the land of Mitzrayim. This command was written in the Parshas Amon at the conclusion of it. After the nation rested on the seventh day. Because again, that's the completion of it. Being in the because also concerning the idea that it's a safekeeping for generations. Let's skip the brackets to the second line over there. Yes, from the bottom of that paragraph. Yes, there's a need to know all the details of the matters of Parshas Amon ad legemar l'shleimus ini Shabbos till the conclusion of the matter on Shabbos. So once there was an entire cycle done, so then the Mahn was put away as a message for generations. But if it was still in the middle of the cycle and we still wouldn't know what would happen and what would be called and so on, so we held off on putting it away as safekeeping for all generations. We're going to skip to Eisbov. Alpia Amur, that according to the above mentioned things, should be Shabbos or Rishon L'Yiridus Hamon B'Chav Beis B'Iyar. On first Shabbos, the descent of the Mahn on the 22nd of Iyar. Nishlam Klolos Ein L'Yiridus Hamon was concluded the general idea of the Mahn coming down. And the Shabbos Zut Shekviyus B'Chav Beis Iyar, this Shabbos, that its calendar time is the 22nd of Iyar. Yeshliches and Klolos Ein L'Yiridus Hamon. We have to live with the general idea of the descent of the Mahn. Primarily to derive from it a lesson concerning our avodah in actuality. In the explanation of this is Mahn as Mahn includes all a person's needs. Whether it's matters that are necessary for the person's life, and includes also things that are only for the person's enjoyment. Things are necessary for a person's existence. That the bread satisfies and supports a person's heart. It's called bread that Hashem gave it to eat. It's called bread from heaven. Where do you see that Mahn has to do with delight? It says with time, it's apichis b'dvash. Its flavors like Sapichis b'dvash. What does Rashi say? But b'dvash. Dough that's fried in honey. But the honey is a matter of delight. So we see that the Mahn is both basic staples and things that are enjoyable. But noticeable in addition to the fact that its flavor was like dough fried in honey, that its flavor changed according to the wishes of the person. As long as the Yidden ate it, they found different flavors to it. Every single Jew would derive the flavor from it, whatever he wanted. All the delights of the world a person could taste in the Mahn. Not only that, the Mahn also included the light that has no connection with eating and drinking. It says, when the Mahn came down from upon high and it landed on this dew layer and covering and was covered by dew, along with that, precious stones and diamonds came down as well. And the Chazal say that's where they had the precious stones that was necessary for the Choshen, for the Kohen Gadol. Nimsa comes out, in the Yeridus Hamon, Moed Alam Shochas, Yeridus Hashbam, Almayla L'chol Yisrael, V'chol HaMitzdarech. The idea of the Mahn descending indicates the drawing down and descent of all types of influence from above to all Yid in everything they need, and this itself, in a way of comfort and in a way of delight. So he says also on top of next page, according to this, we can explain the Derech Agav in passing. Concerning the Mahn, we find a special emphasis that it descended in the merit of Moshe. Isa b'Gemara, it's brought down the Gemara Shloisha Parnosim Tovim Amdul Yisrael, three good supporters or providers arose for the Jewish people. Eluhain, who are the three providers? Moshe, Aaron, Miriam. Moshe and Aaron and Miriam were the three good providers. V'gimel matanos toivus nitnu al yadam, and three good gifts were given through these three providers. Ve'eluhain, these are the gifts. Ve'er, the well that traveled with them in the wilderness. Ve'anon, and the cloud of glory, the clouds of glory. Uman, and the man. Ve'er b'schus Miriam. We know that the well was in the merit of Miriam. Amud Anon b'schus Aaron, the pillar of the cloud was in the merit of Aaron. Man b'schus Moshe, Man was in the merit of Moshe Rabbeinu. Mesa Miriam Nestalka Be'er, when Miriam passed away, the well stopped giving the water. Mes Aaron Nestalka Nani Yaakov, when Aaron passed away, the clouds of glory left. Chaz Rishneim b'schus Moshe, they both returned in Moshe Rabbeinu's merit. Loimer means to say, even though the well and the clouds of glory was a need that the Jewish people needed, not only that, though in order on the calendar dates, the clouds of glory and the wellspring came before. Because the Mahn, we said, the food they took out of Mitzrayim lasted them until the Mahn came down the 16th of the year. But the clouds of glory and the well started earlier. Since the Mahn is a general thing that includes all the needs of a person, canal, as we mentioned before, therefore, Mudgish by Yoiser HaKesher VaShayches and Moshe Rabbeinu, it's emphasized even more so the connection and the association with Moshe Rabbeinu. Nisi Hador, the leader of the generation, that his merit and through him, through Moshe Rabbeinu, come down all the hashpalas to all the members of his generation. And then the Rebbe goes on and says that really everything is from Moshe Rabbeinu. V'yesh lahoisuf, which can add, shalamite matasa shaldavar, in truth, harigam haber va'onanem idea Moshe Rabbeinu. Even the well and even the clouds of glory, which we said initially was through Miriam and Aaron, they're also coming through Moshe. V'kiven Moshe Rabbeinu nasi ador. Since Moshe Rabbeinu is the head of the generation, va'nasi u'hakoil, and the nasi is everything. Harikol in Yone Hashpol Yisrael Einam Ela Yode, all the types of Hashpol have to come down to the Jewish people, have to come through him. And the Rebbe goes on to say that even when the Yidden asked for meat, and Moshe Rabbeinu said Ma'ayin li basar, and Hashem had to take from the spirit of Moshe and put it on the 70 elders, but it was still from the spirit of Moshe Rabbeinu that went on the 70 elders to bring down the meat. Why did it have to come from Moshe Rabbeinu? So he says, second line from the bottom of this paragraph, the hashpah, even for meat that came through the 70 elders, had to come from Moshe Rabbeinu's spirit. Since he is the leader of the generation, though in actuality, how did it come down? It came down via the channeling of the 70 elders. Then moving on, this is also understood concerning the well and the cloud. Miriam va'Aaron. Also, the time that it came down in the merit of Miriam and Aaron, skip the parentheses. In truth, that they came down also through Moshe Rabbeinu, the leader of the generation. Nasi Akoil, the Nasi is everything and everyone else. Moshe Rabbeinu Bocher Ba'achi Ba'achoisli. Moshe Rabbeinu chose his brother and his sister. Jinyanim Elu, that these things, Be'er Va'anan, the well and the clouds, Yum Shchuba Pa'il B'Gol Al Yodim, should come down in actuality in a revealed way through them. U'bezech Chaluk Hamon Me'aber Va'anan. And that this is the distinction between the Mahn and the well and the cloud. Since the Mahn, as we said before, was something that's a very general thing that includes all the needs of a person, The connection with Moshe Rabbeinu, the leader of the generation, is emphasized in a revealed way, as opposed to the well and the cloud, though they also were brought down through Moshe Rabbeinu. This is not in a revealed way. So the Rebbe says now, in a practical sense, that our physical needs, we need to know where it comes from. From here we derive a lesson concerning our bond with the leader of the generation, that the general hashpah, or the entire generation, concerning all their matters, it only comes through the leader of the generation. Hanasi the Nasi is everything. And Lashon Chazal say, Ein lanu al Hashem echad, we only have one God, Aron echad, we only have one Aron, v'toira achas, one Toira, u'mizbeach echad, and one Mizbeach v'kohen gadol echad. We only have one kohen gadol. So we see the idea that even in the humanity, even in the human beings, there is only one and nothing else. So now we're going to come to explain the teaching and the lesson from the general idea of the Mahn coming down until our generation. Though the descent of the Mahn in actuality was for a limited time. It was 40 years until they came to a settled land. Along with the fact that they have to wait 40 years till they came to a settled land, that they only came down for 40 years. Hashem still commanded, fill an omer size from it as a safekeeping for your generations. So they should see the bread that I fed you in the midbar when I took you out of the land of Mitzrayim. Why was that necessary? To teach all the Jewish people to the end of all generations that it's their capability and power to arrive to such a state and situation that their entire involvement should be in Torah without thinking about making a living. Then Hashem concerns himself with their making a living. And he gives them all that they need. Children, life, sustenance comfortably. And all of these, the children and life and the sustenance, are all comfortable in a way of breath and in a way of delight. Saying, though many years passed since the Mahn came down, until this generation, at the end of the time of Golas, still unknown. The matter remained as a safekeeping for your generations until the end of all generations. So every single yid in every place and every time should be able to act like the generation that actually physically did consume the Mahn. They were involved in Torah, and they derived their sustenance from the fact that Hashem gave them bread from heaven. And it's obvious that what we're deriving from this is the lesson. We're talking about literal, physical making a living in the literal sense. Similar to the Mahn, though was bread from heaven, it descended down here in the physical world to be physical bread and physical food. Let's skip over to the bottom, second paragraph from the bottom. So too concerning all the other things that were that are a person's needs, haklulim b'mon, that are included in the Mahn. That those are also physical matters in the literal sense. In when it comes to all these matters, Hashem is concerned, and it matters to him for every single Yid, for everything that the Yid needs, and even in the needs of Yid, in a way of comfort, in a way of delight, not just basic staples, but everything that they need, even things of delight. In such a manner, without any bother and toil from his side, just like our forefathers derived sustenance in Egypt without any need for having the any type of toil for receiving this and so on. Hashem has many messengers. He has many types of ways of ensuring that that he's going to prepare the food for those that fear. Then the Rebbe says that let's skip over a little bit. The Rebbe says into the third paragraph in Tess, yes, no, that it says over there, Ru'u Dvar Hashem, that Yirmiyahu said, see it. So the Rebbe says the idea of Ru'u is a very important part over here of the equation. There are those things that we have to remember them for all generations. The thing itself doesn't exist. Rather in a manner of we're remembering the past. For example, the splitting of the sea. The actual being and the entity of the Yamsuf now is not in such a way that it's split. All we have now is the remembrance of what happened in the past. That when the Yidden went out of Mitzrayim, the water split. As opposed to a safekeeping for your generations. That says by the Mahn, it's not just a memory. The existence and the entity of the Mahn itself is actually in existence right now. A physical existence in the physical world. Tinsenes as Haman, this jar of man, in the times of Yirmiyahu, he took it out, he showed it to the Yidden, and he told them, see how this is how your forefathers were supported. Not only was it then in the times of the Beis Hamikdash, even after the time that the Aron was hidden away at the end of the first time, Beis Hamikdash, this jar of man was hidden away together with the Aron. It doesn't say that the jar of man got lost or destroyed or something. So we know and believe that the actual item of the Tzinsenes Hamon exists now in the physical world. Though we cannot see it, since it was hidden away. This is so important and this is so necessary, skip the parentheses, for the Mon to remain, for a safekeeping. For this reason, the godly nature of the Mon changed, that we fill up the Eimer with Mon. The nature of the Mon was that it only lasted one day, and if you saved it for the next day, it became ruined. It's even brought down that could hurt if a person used it, etc. Became still in all. This Eimer that was put away in the jar as safekeeping for your generations went against the very nature of the month, and it existed for thousands of years. And the Rebbe goes on, last paragraph, let's skip over to Yesh Lahoisif, we could add She'etzem Kiyuma Shal the sense Amon B'Elam Haza Agashmi, the very existence of this jar of man in the physical world, the Mishmeros L'Yiseichem, the safekeeping for your generations, my Sifa, Misayas, Bam Shochas, Upulas Ha'inyan, the Poil Mamish. It assists and helps out and adds in what the man has to do to inspire us and to act like those Yidden that ate from the man, that they didn't have to worry about making a living. Al derech hamavur b'drosh saran, similar to what's brought down in the Sefer called Drosh Saran, shematzinu b'kama nevuos nestava navi lekashas nevuah and full agashmis. We find in Navi different things that Hashem told the Navi to connect it with some physical activity. Why do you need to do a physical activity? Hashem was just giving the Navi a message to give over to the Jewish people. Why did he tell them to do a certain action? For example, it says about Mashiach's time that he told the Navi to take two sticks, write on one stick Yehuda, write on the other stick Yosef, put it together, and then they miraculously joined as one. This was a sign that Mashiach's times the two governments of Yehuda and Binyamin and the Aseret Hashvatim will be joined as one. Why do you need to do that? Just tell them when Mashiach comes, they'll be joined as one government. They'll be all under Mashiach. Because the physicality of it brings it into the world. To assure the fulfillment of the nevuah in actuality. So therefore, the same thing, by having the actual existence of the jar of man now being in existence, somewhere hidden away underground where the Aron is, that like assures even more so that we could live our lives like they did in the Midbar with complete reliance on Hashem. Now the Rebbe adds an Ois Yud. If we could add to this another wondrous thing. Concerning the different flavors of the man, every single Jew could taste whatever flavor he wanted in the man. The Medrash can add to this. Even if he didn't explicitly say, I want this to taste like chocolate cake. He was only thinking in his mind what to say, what he desires. Hashem fulfills his will. He would taste the flavor of what he would desire. The idea behind this is the Rebbe says, but in general, yes, there's a need of davening to draw down whatever we have to draw down from above. Not only that, even after davening, there are different levels in the manner of the descent and the drawing down of the ashpah, and it's revelation down here below. Because the many chain order of the sense of levels, there could be a delay, there could be obstacles, there could be blockages that don't allow it to come down. Yes, like the Sakev Hashpachula, there's the need for a special effort to be put in, that the Hashpah that's coming from above should not get stuck somewhere in the spiritual realms. Like it's explained on Marach Siddur from Miles Birchas Koinim about the advantage of the bracha, the Koinim, that the kindness of Hashem should come down speedily, should not delay in the world, and the great chain descent of the world, instead, it should come down speedily, should rush his word. And then the Rebbe goes on to say that was the idea of the Mata Aaron, that the staff of Aaron was such that had to be that grew the shkedim quickly and so on, because that showed on the speed of the kohenim's brach. Let's skip to the bottom of the page.
Wait, can I ask you a question? How do we get from like the man is there to show us that everything is from Hashem to like we need to daven for it and we have to work hard, like we have to effort.
Let's see. Let's look the last paragraph.
Okay.
There's something higher than this. Sincereness Hamon, the jar of Mon Sha'afim Loy Hoya Eimer Befiv, even if he didn't explicitly state it. He's thinking in his heart what to say. What his heart desires. Hashem fulfills his will. And the person tastes what the tam, whatever flavor he desired. This means to say, to be able to taste what he desired. He didn't have to wait even one day, like the staff of Aaron. Overnight, it said that his staff of Aaron blossomed, the almond blossoms. When he thought in his heart to say what his heart desires, what his soul desires, that very moment, he would taste what he desired. The reason for this is since it already came down in the Mahn, all the delights and all the enjoyments of the world, in actuality. In other words, it was already there embedded in the Mahn. This wasn't something like Birchas Koyanim and Mata Aaron that has to bring down something in the spiritual realms, but it brings it down quickly. But the Mahn already had embedded in it all the different flavors. There's no need to awaken and draw down this hashpah from above. Because in the very existence of the Mahn, there's already in actuality all the pleasures of the world. All that's necessary is only to reveal the matter through wanting a particular flavor. Skip the parentheses. Then he has everything that he desired in actuality. That is the advantage of the jar of Mahn Aaron over the staff of Aaron. Both of them were placed in front of the Aaron, and both of them were hidden with the Aaron when the Aaron was hidden on the ground in the days of Yeshua. Not only does the jar of Mahn show that the hamshachah that comes down from above is in the way of speed, al yiseirim is even more so. There's no need to awaken and to affect the descent of what's coming down from above. Since the ray drawn down and it came down and it's there in actuality. What's derived from all the above. Not only is the existence of the actual sincereness Hamon, the jar of Mahn, the physical way, to such a degree that's no way that can be seen. That actual existence of it, even though it's hidden, but it exists. That affects that every single Yid is able to receive his parnasa and all of his needs in a way of bread from heaven. Even more so, there's no need even for particular activity. There's no need for davening, or saying to affect the drawing down of the blessing from above. Skip the brackets. Since the drawing down the blessing is already there in existence. All that's necessary is to reveal the matter through the fact that a Yid wants his hashpah. Then he has it right away without even davening and learning for it, etc.